You just heard my text that I use at just about every wedding. I appreciate that. I read John 2, the wedding at Cana. I talk about how it was a wedding, and there is a tradition that anthropologists have studied. It transcends all societies, it transcends time, it transcends everything. Regardless of what group in history you belong to, when you're invited to a wedding, you're supposed to bring a gift. There's something deep inside of us that tells us that. So this is not a lectionary reading this morning. This is a passage that I've picked for Mother's Day. And the context is Jesus, his disciples, his mother, and a wedding. And I would ask the question, what gifts are you going to receive today from the Holy Spirit? Not only when you are invited to a wedding, but when we are invited to Christ, there are gifts involved. Gift giving. The Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke describe Mary, the mother of Jesus, as a virgin. Matthew and Luke are the only two that talk about Mary, the mother of Jesus, as a virgin. The Gospel of Luke mentions Mary the most often, identifying her by name 12 times. All of these in the infancy narrative. That's the Gospel of Luke. Mentions Mary the most 12 times. The Gospel of Matthew mentions Mary by name 5 times. 4 of these in the infancy narrative, and once outside the infancy narrative. Listen to this. This is Matthew 13, quote, when Jesus, 13th chapter of Matthew, when Jesus had finished these parables, he moved on from there. Coming to his hometown, he began teaching the people in their synagogue, and they were amazed. Where did this man get this wisdom and these miraculous powers, they asked. Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Jesus had brothers? Jesus had brothers and sisters? Wait a minute. Aren't all of his sisters with us? Matthew writes, where then did this man get all these things? And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor. You remember this. A prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home. Everybody agrees that this guy Jesus of Nazareth really lived, really existed. Everybody agrees on that. We could start there as a baseline. They're called extra-biblical sources of history, and everyone, conservative, fundamentalist, everybody agrees that Jesus lived. So, there's our baseline. And if he lived on earth as a human being, what does this mean? It means he was born of a woman. He was born. And Matthew tells us that he had brothers and sisters. I want to know what it was like growing up in that house. Can somebody please tell me what it was like to have Jesus as a brother? Can somebody please tell me that? And here on Mother's Day, I'm thinking about Mother Mary. Now, according to the Bible, she was there. She was present when Jesus was born. Good, I was hoping somebody would at least giggle a little. I was present. When my mother bore me, I was there. She saw me take my first breath. That was in 1934. No, that's when she was born. She saw me take my first, wow, that was a really weird thing. She saw me take my first breath in 1958. I'm 68 years old. On the fourth Sunday of Advent, in the year 2019, she was 85 years old. My older brother Jeff and I saw our mother take her last breath. I was there. My younger sister Jill chose to not be there. She said to Jeff and I can't do this. I'll be in the waiting room outside the room. And we said, that's fine, Jill. Don't do what you need to do. Jeff and I stayed. I was there. My mother saw me take my first breath. And I saw her take her last. The Gospel of Mark names Mary once and mentions Jesus, quote, Jesus' mother, without naming her in the 3rd chapter. So Mark, not surprisingly, mentions Mary once. And the Gospel of John, which we are looking at briefly today, the Gospel of John refers to the mother of Jesus twice, but never mentions her name. She is first seen at the wedding at Cana, which we've heard read today. The second reference has her standing near the cross of Jesus, together with Mary Magdalene, Mary of Clopas, and her own sister. This is getting more interesting, this family tree. Possibly the same as Mary of Clopas, standing beside the cross. According to John, Jesus was there, even though it's not mentioned. Mary was there, of course, when Jesus was born, right? And then very early on in John, in the 2nd chapter, we have the only conversation recorded in the New Testament between Jesus and his mother. And essentially what's going on is somebody comes, Mary and the disciples come to Jesus and say, we got a problem here at this wedding, we're running out of wine. And Jesus is like, why are you bothering me with these things? He's giving his mom a little sass. I like that. And I like the fact that I think she sort of gives, it can be read this way, she sort of gives it back a little. I could just see her turning her back, taking her hand and going, just do whatever he says. Trust me, this guy can help you out. Do whatever he says. This is the only conversation that we have. And by the way, the point of this so-called miracle at Cana is that Jesus instantly transforms hundreds of gallons of water into wine. John is talking to us in code here. How long does it take the living Spirit of Christ to transform your life? How long does that take? How long does it take to it's quicker than asking the question. How long does it take me to ask that question? Ready? How long does it take Jesus to transform your life? What was it, 2 seconds? 3 seconds? Jesus can transform our lives quicker than that. The problem is our brains get in the way. We can't even believe that this is true, and it is. That's the point of this miracle. This is just like last week. Be very afraid. I am so prepared up here to speak for hours on Mother's Day. I've got lots of sources. Michelle Maidenberg is her name. Michelle Maidenberg. She's got a PhD, and she's a psychologist. And in 2025, she wrote an article entitled "The Unspoken Magic of Motherhood." This is a PhD mother, psychologist. Quote, "Motherhood is the quiet courage of showing up every day, even when you're exhausted and full of doubt. It's wiping away tears, both theirs and your own, and somehow finding strength in the softness. Motherhood doesn't come with a manual, yet it teaches you more than any book ever could. It's a love that stretches you, humbles you, and ultimately transforms you in the most unexpected and beautiful ways. On Mother's Day, we pause to honor the women who mother the birth givers, the adopted parents, the stepmothers, the grandmothers, the aunties, the mother figures, and the women who nurture with open arms and open hearts. No two motherhood journeys are the same. Some women waited years to hear the word mommy. Others became mothers through grief, through fertility battles, through surrogacy or foster care. Some women stepped in where others could not, becoming chosen moms, filling hearts that longed for love. There are single mothers who carry the load alone, smiling through exhaustion. There are working moms juggling deadlines and daycare pickups, and stay-at-home moms wondering when anyone will see how hard they work. There are mothers who've lost children, whose arms ache with an invisible weight today. There are estranged mothers, healing mothers, new mothers, and seasoned ones still learning. There is no one way to do it right. There is only your way, your love, your commitment. Joy Jones Groat, my mother, as I mentioned, born in 1934 in Menneson, Pennsylvania. I have very deep roots on my mother's side in Menneson, Pennsylvania. She was an only child. When she was a little girl, Menneson was a steel mill town along the Monongahela River, and every morning when she was a little girl, they had a front porch, 38 Knox Street, and there was about a quarter inch of black soot on everybody's front porch every morning when you got up from the steel mill down along the river. My mom, little Joy, she got a nickel a day from starting her day sweeping off the front porch. Across the street, and when I was a little kid, it was still there, across the street was a corner grocery. The family lived on the second floor. They had a small corner grocery. Down on the first floor, they had penny candy. Even as a kid, I remember my grandfather flipping each of his grandchildren a quarter and said, "Go across the street and get yourself 25 pieces of candy." Can you imagine? How would you feel if you owned that grocery and you saw 10 kids walking in, each with a quarter? It happened. Little Joy Jones would get 5 pieces of candy every day if she wanted to. My mother was a gifted musician. She was a soloist, soprano soloist, music major at Mount Union College, had big plans, lived her adult life a little frustrated because she always dreamt of making it big in music, but she met my dad when she was a sophomore at college, and my dad was a junior. And they got married, and my brother was born 9.5 months later. So she said goodbye to her career as a musician. My dad was a control freak in his 500-member church, First Presbyterian Church of Marysville. He ran that church, and if you didn't like that, you got to go find a new church. A lot of people liked him, and he was seen as very much a success. He was in control of everything in his life except for one thing: our house. My mom was in charge. She told my dad what to do. And my dad said, "Yes, dear." He was smart. Two favorite stories, and then I'm done. It had to be first, second, or third grade. My brother and sister and I, we weren't the rebellious type. I suppose I was the one that would get the closest to being rebellious from time to time. So it had to be first, second, or third grade, because those 3 years we lived in the church manse. We moved out of the manse when I entered 4th grade, moved up the street, owned our first house, but we lived in the church manse. That's what Presbyterians call a parsonage. They call it a manse. And I was home with my mother, and she did something that made me mad. I was mad at my mom. So that house had a long first hallway on the first floor. Down here was the front door, and down here at the end of the hallway, long hallway, was the first floor small bathroom. And my mom did something that made me mad. And she walked down the hall. I watched her walk down, and she went into the bathroom. And when she wasn't looking, I stuck my tongue out at her. I just looked in her direction and stuck my tongue out at her. And what I didn't realize was that on the back, on the inside of that door was a full-length mirror. And the door was open. And she saw me. She saw me stick my tongue out at her. And she started walking towards me. This was a defining moment in my life. It really was. She walked up to me and she looked very sad. And I can tell you verbatim what she said. She said, "I guess that just shows me how much you love me." That's what she said. Genius. I never stuck my tongue out at her again. Genius. And the second story is when I was in junior high school. We didn't have middle schools back then. We had junior high schools and senior high schools. My brother was in high school. I was in junior high school. My brother went through his balsa wood airplane phase. Balsa wood airplanes, and he would put together balsa wood airplanes. And to put together balsa wood airplanes, you need X-Acto knives, very sharp knives. You cut the balsa wood and you put these planes together. And my mother and I were home alone again, and I decided it was a good idea to play with my brother's X-Acto knives. And of course I cut myself. I got the scar right here. It was my first finger on my left hand. I ended up having 4 stitches. I cut my hand. And I knew I was home alone with my mom. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but it was a lot of blood. Instantly. What was my response? First thing out of my mouth. Only thing out of my mouth. I was in the basement. My mom was upstairs. What was my response? Mom! I went running upstairs. Blood. She said, "Get in the car." We got in the car. She got me a towel. She said, "Try not to get blood on everything." And we took off. for the emergency room at Union County Hospital, which was located on the other side of town. And my mom drove the car. She ran through every stop sign and every red light. Ran them all. And I sat there with the towel in my hand, and I was saying to myself, this is really cool. My mom is running every stop sign and every red light. This is so cool. A mother's love. The New Testament tells us that Mary was there when Jesus was born, and John tells us that she was there for what they thought was his last breath. It's a mother's love. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.